I believed he'd be my forever, until a Spotify click revealed he'd spent 5 years planning a stranger's wedding in my name. My name is Emily, not my real name, and I never expected my world to collapse in a single click. 2 weeks ago, I was content that my fiancé, Alex, and I had the kind of relationship people envy: shared laughter over morning coffee, weekend hikes with our dog, Baxter, and late-night talks about our future home. He told me he'd just landed a major promotion, that he couldn't wait to celebrate. I believed him, until I saw his other life online. It started when I was planning our engagement party and needed playlist ideas. On a tight deadline, I clicked through Spotify's Friends Favorites feature, and there it was, a profile under Alex's name, but the avatar wasn't him. It was a simple logo, 2 intertwined rings with the words, "Forever and Always." Curious, I tapped it. His playlists were there, my favorite songs from our road trips, the jazz tune he surprised me with on our first date, but also wedding planning tips, floral arrangement tutorials, and dozens of upbeat, cheer-up tracks. What caught my eye was a private message pinned at the top, asterisk. "Remember, 50 guests max, keep it intimate." Asterisk sent to Sarah and Ryan. My heart stuttered. Sarah and Ryan, who were they? I scrolled through the messages. "Can't wait to meet the photographer, ring size confirmed at 6.5, kids table by the fireplace." He'd been planning someone else's wedding. Every tap of the screen felt like a blow. I closed the app and stared at my engagement ring, the tiny diamond in its setting suddenly too cold. Alex stepped into the room with a flourish, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "I thought you might need a pick-me-up." His smile was warm, familiar, utterly misplaced now. I swallowed hard, planting the mugs on the coffee table. "We need to talk," I said, voice trembling more than I intended. He sat beside me, eyebrows knitting in concern. "What's wrong?" I forced calm. "Tell me about Sarah and Ryan." His face strained. "Sarah and Ryan?" he repeated. I tapped my phone screen. "This." He stared at the logo and playlists, and the chat headline pinned above. I watched his jaw set. "Emily, I can explain." "You'd better," I whispered. My words felt small against the weight of his deception. He took a deep breath. "Sarah is my childhood friend. Ryan is her fiancé. We started that account 2 years ago as a shared project, a way to keep friends updated on their wedding plans." I blinked. "Why didn't you tell me?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Because it was supposed to be temporary. I'd help them set up the page, then hand it off. But work got crazy, they got busy, and I forgot to pass the login." His gaze dropped to his hands. "I never meant to hide it." I pressed on. "What about the kids' table message? And the private chats about photographer and ring sizes?" He winced. "They added that themselves. They wrote the bulk of the messages. I only posted the playlists and occasional updates when they asked me to." "Then why aren't they posting themselves?" My voice rose. "You're the only one actually posting." He looked stricken. "They're not tech-savvy. They relied on me for social media. They didn't know the password. I swear, Emily, I planned that engagement party you loved last month. I never scheduled their rehearsal dinner." My pulse thundered. Half of me wanted to believe him. The other half felt the sting of every weekend he'd work late. Now I imagine him editing wedding invites instead of closing work deals. Zoe, my best friend, sat behind me on the sofa, silent but alert. She knew about his big promotion, about our wedding plans. Now she looked at Alex as though he'd asked her to believe in magic instead of math. "I need proof," I said, voice shaking. "Screenshots of everything you did for them, and my account back." Alex nodded, face pale. "You'll get it." He reached for his laptop and fired it open, tapping the logo's URL. As he typed in credentials, I realized I'd become a detective in my own life, searching for evidence to decide whether I could trust this man again. Within minutes, the dashboard came back up. Alex's hands hovered over the keyboard. "Okay," he said, clicking into the message history. "Look." Chat logs spilled across the screen. Group messages labeled Sarah and Ryan's wedding, broken into threads for music, seating, photography. He scrolled to the earliest entries, pictures from their engagement shoot, the draft of their vows. One note read, asterisk, only immediate family, no aunts or uncles who bring drama. Asterisk. He hesitated, then clicked on user info. Both Sarah and Ryan were admins, but their accounts hadn't posted since 2019. He'd been their sole surrogate on social media for 5 years. I stared at the blonde woman's name, Sarah Kellerman, and the man's, Ryan Porter. They sounded like strangers now, ghosts in my narrative. Zoe let out a quiet hiss. Alex closed the laptop, guilt etched in fine lines around his eyes. Emily, I am so sorry. This is my screw-up. I exhaled, frustration flooding my veins. I don't know if I can take your word for it. You erased me from your priorities, just like that. I snapped my fingers. Poof. He stood and moved to me, eyes earnest. Please don't shut the door on us over this mistake. I'll fix it right now. I'll hand this account to them. I'll delete every draft and every post. I pushed past him toward the laptop and opened the dashboard again. Do it, I said. His fingers flew, removing his access, sending Sarah and Ryan invitations with new passwords. As the final admin transfer confirmed, I felt the stranglehold of doubt loosen, just a little. Yet the betrayal felt too fresh, the breach too deep. That night, I lay awake as Zoe slept on my couch. I listened to Alex's gentle snoring in the bedroom, a sound that once comforted me. Now it felt like an echo in a foreign house. My thoughts spun. Was this an innocent oversight born of laziness? Or a symptom of deeper self-absorption? If he could hide this for 5 years, what else might he conceal? I closed my eyes, resolving to press forward, gather every detail, watch for any slip, and decide whether forgiveness was in my future. Tomorrow I'd meet Sarah and Ryan in person, using the new credentials, to hear their side of the story and see if my fiancé's explanation held weight. And only then would I know if the love I invested in him was enough to rebuild trust, or if it was time to walk away, unfinished business left behind. I never suspected my fiancé, Alex, of deceit. We'd built a life together over 5 years, Saturday morning hikes with Baxter, our golden retriever, breakfast in bed while we plotted future renovations to our loft, quiet evenings curled up with board games. When he told me he'd been helping childhood friends Sarah and Ryan launch a wedding planning page online, I thought it was sweet, a favor to buddies too busy to manage social media. But when I clicked on their profile one evening, every comfort I'd taken for granted exploded into doubt. It was a Tuesday. I'd spent the day drafting guest lists for our own engagement party, the one due in 2 months, and needed fresh playlist ideas. Spotify's Friends Favorites feature flashed a new thumbnail, 2 interlocking rings, the words, Forever and Always, beneath them. The name beneath that logo matched my fiancé's exactly. Out of curiosity, I tapped it. At first, I smiled. There were all the songs I loved, that slow-burn jazz tune Alex had introduced me to on our first date, the indie ballad we danced to at our college graduation party, even the goofy 80s pop an ex-girlfriend of his used to blast on road trips. But then there were wedding planning playlists. Ceremony classics, bridal party bops, reception rockers, followed by floral arrangement tutorials and cake tasting guides. My heart stuttered. Scrolling down the page, I found a pinned message from Forever and Always. To Sarah and Ryan. Asterisk. Please confirm that kids' table by the fireplace. Asterisk beneath that, a half-written caption. Asterisk. Don't forget Aunt Martha can't handle noisy rooms, seat her here. Asterisk. My pulse thundered in my ears. My breezy favor for friends had become an epic case of identity theft, or worse. I closed the app and stared at my reflection in the darkened screen. Emily, the unsuspecting fiancé, who thought she had open trust and got a secret life instead. My coffee mug slipped from my trembling fingers, splattering dark stains across the rug. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Alex. Asterisk. Hey love, dinner at 7? Asterisk, the simple question felt like salt in an open wound. I punched in Zoe's number, my oldest friend and relentless truth seeker. Zoe, get over here. I managed, voice tight. He's got another wedding in his name. Within 30 minutes, Zoe was by my side, arms loaded with takeout coffee and the weight of her own rising anger. I showed her the page, the logo, the playlists, the pinned message. She peered at my phone, jaw clenched. He's been running someone else's wedding from our account, she said flatly. All those weekends you thought he was working late? Likely excuse runs to a florist, not to a client pitch. Tears stung my eyes as the enormity of it sank in. Had every business trip been a ruse? Every client celebration, a rehearsal dinner I wasn't invited to? I thought of the engagement ring he'd slid on my finger under fairy lights last month, a promise I'd treasured now tinged with betrayal. We need facts, Zoe said, snapping on her coat. We screenshot every detail, playlists, message threads, admin settings. Then we figure out who Sarah and Ryan are, if they know he's been ghost posting for them or if he hijacked their wedding altogether. I nodded numbly. We spent the next hour capturing evidence. Zoe taught me to scroll slowly, long press images to save them, note the dates on every post. The page had been active for years. Some playlists dated back to 2018, just after Alex and I moved in together. He never mentioned creating the page, never shown me the admin dashboard, never once said, "Hey, there's a wedding I need to promote." By midnight, our files were organized in folders. Playlists, pinned messages, admin logs. Zoe's laptop hummed as she backed everything up. "Tomorrow," she said, "we confront him. You need to hear his explanation in person, no virtual excuses." I lay awake long after Zoe dozed on my sofa. I pictured Alex's face when I challenged him. Confusion, panic, maybe anger. I wasn't sure what I wanted more, a confession or a confession he couldn't deny. The nights he returned smelling faintly of lilac, and not like perfume, took on new meaning as I wondered which floral shop he'd raided for Sarah's bouquet. Morning light found me exhausted and wired. I dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, something comfortable for heartbreak. Zoe helped me rehearse the questions. Who are Sarah and Ryan? Why didn't you tell me? What else have you hidden? I ran through them until my voice felt steady. At 6:30 p.m., the moment arrived. Alex stepped through the door, briefcase in hand, exhaustion on his face. He dropped a kiss on my cheek. Long day. Smells good in here. He headed toward the kitchen. I raised the folder. We need to talk now. He froze, the casual ease draining from his posture. Zoe stood behind me, arms crossed. He blinked at the evidence spilling across my coffee table, then at me. Emily? He whispered, as though the name itself might break. I gestured to the screen. He sank onto the couch, gaze darting from Zoe to me as if searching for an ally. I can explain, he said, voice cracking. I swallowed, heart pounding. Start with why you've been running someone else's wedding from our shared account for years, without me knowing. He took a deep breath, folding his hands in front of him. It wasn't what you think, he began. But it's time you heard everything. And just like that, my future, the one we had planned together, hinged on the words he would say next. He stared at the folder of screenshots spread across the table, the playlists bearing his name, the pinned message to Sarah and Ryan, the drafts of seating charts he never discussed with me. His face crumpled as though every memory of us had been scraped away by a single revelation. He rubbed his temples, then looked up with haunted eyes. Emily, he began, voice barely louder than a whisper. You think I hijacked their wedding? That I'm some kind of double-life con artist? But it's not like that. He paused, gathering strength. There's context. Please hear me out. I folded my arms, Zoe looming behind me like a silent juror. Then give me context, I said. My voice wavered on the last word, anger and heartbreak tangled together. Because right now, all I see is deception. He shut his eyes and drew a slow breath. Okay. 2 years ago, Sarah and I were neighbors in our small hometown. We grew up together, went to the same schools. I'd moved back after finishing grad school to care for my mother. She was ill, and Sarah's family needed help planning her sister's wedding. She asked me to manage their social media because her sister didn't have time, and I volunteered. He leaned forward, face earnest. It was supposed to be a one-time favor, just a few weeks. But the sister postponed, and Sarah got overwhelmed. She kept asking me to post updates, manage comments, keep the guests informed. I said yes because it reminded me of home, of community. Then my mom passed, and I stayed to help Sarah bury her mother. I was stuck there, emotionally tied to that family. I closed my eyes against the swell of his memories. But why didn't you tell me any of this when I moved in with you? When we got engaged? When I asked why we never talked about your old friends? His voice cracked. Because I thought it was over. I thought I'd handed the account back. I never checked until a few weeks ago, when Sarah said she lost access. I logged in to help her reset the password, and I saw my name still on every post. I panicked, realized I'd been living this life part-time while building another. I deleted my posts immediately. I changed the admin to Sarah. But by that point, I knew I'd messed up by not telling you. Zoe exchanged a quick glance with me. She'd seen the pain in my eyes when I discovered the page. I felt a surge of compassion for him. His guilt was real, his grief palpable, but the betrayal still festered. I pressed on. And the message about the kids' table? The ring size? You claim Sarah and Ryan wrote those themselves, yet they never posted them. You did. He closed his eyes again, as if the truth weighed him down. Those drafts were ours together. Ryan told Sarah over coffee, then Sarah sent them to me to post. She trusted me with the technical stuff. I just forwarded them without thinking, then life happened, and I forgot to let you know. I shook my head. So you were their admin, their ghostwriter, their surrogate planner, their media manager, and none of that was important enough to mention to me? Not when we were sitting in the same room, talking about our future? He opened his eyes, tears shining. I was ashamed. I felt torn between two families, yours and theirs. And every time I thought of telling you, I'd freeze, worried you'd think less of me. I convinced myself I was protecting you from old wounds you didn't need. I convinced myself I could untangle the accounts before you noticed. The pain in his voice echoed in my chest. Years of his reassurances. I've got this, I'll take care of everything. Trust me, suddenly sounded like shells of false comfort. But even as my heart clenched, I recognized a raw honesty I hadn't anticipated. He wasn't mocking me, he was unraveling beside me. I glanced at Zoe, whose stern expression softened just a touch. She gave me the space to decide my next move. I turned back to him. This isn't just about a Facebook page, I said, voice steadier now. It's about every time I asked where you were, and you said work. Every time I planned a weekend getaway, and you canceled for family business. I believed you. I rearranged my life around your words, and they weren't true. His shoulders slumped. You have every right to be angry, he said. I'd be furious if the roles were reversed. I know I broke your trust, but I'm begging you to let me fix this. I looked at the pile of evidence again, each screenshot a testament to the life he'd led without me. Fix this how? I challenged. He stood and crossed to the window, watching evenings settle over the city. I'll do whatever it takes, he said without turning. I'll delete every post, every draft, every pinned message. I'll write them an apology in person. I'll reimburse them for hiring a planner. I'll hand over the admin account completely. And most importantly, I'll never keep anything from you again. I'll share every calendar invite, every password, every last detail. His voice trembled on. Every. And I sensed the weight of his promise. I exhaled slowly. That sounds comprehensive. My heart still pounded, though the anger had shifted to wary hope. But words aren't proof. I reached for my phone and tapped a fresh note. Heading: Transparency Challenge. Below I typed: Asterisk full access to personal and work calendars. Asterisk weekly account summaries for me to review. * joint email logins for any shared services. * regular check-ins about weekend plans. I showed it to him. If you agree to these terms for 1 month, I'll consider forgiving the deception. But no more secret lives, only one story, ours. He read the list, nodding gravely. I agree, he whispered. Every single point. I closed the note and locked my phone, feeling a cautious resolve settle in my chest. Then we start tomorrow. He reached for my hand, his fingertips warm against my cold skin. Thank you, he said. I won't let you down again. Zoe stood and slipped her hand into mine. I'll be here for moral support, she said with her usual half-smile. As Zoe headed out, the apartment felt both lighter and heavier. Lighter because he'd finally named the secret he'd carried, heavier because the road ahead would demand proof and patience. But for the first time since I discovered the hidden wedding page, I felt in control of my own life. I squeezed Alex's hand. I'm scared, I admitted. He pressed his forehead to mine. Me too, he said softly. But we'll face it together. And as the city lights blinked on outside our window, I realized our real test had only just begun. The following Saturday dawned crisp and clear as Zoe and I piled into her car for the drive north. Sarah and Ryan's home was in a suburban cul-de-sac I'd never visited, far from the city buzz, an echo of the life Alex had kept from me. My heart thudded in my chest as we pulled up, a pale yellow craftsman house with blue shutters and a swing framed by wind chimes. Zoe gave my hand a squeeze. Remember, you're here for answers, not revenge. I swallowed, straightened my sweater, and climbed the 3 steps to the porch. The doors swung open before I could knock. You must be Emily, said a woman whose eyes were the same color as my fiancé's. Her smile was tentative but kind. I'm Sarah. And this is my husband, Ryan. She ushered us inside. He appeared from the living room, wiping flour from his hands, baking bread, Zoe later told me, for the kids' lunchboxes. I stepped in and offered a small wave. Thank you for having me. My voice felt small in the warm entryway. Sarah led us into a bright kitchen that smelled of cinnamon and yeast. Ryan poured coffee for all of us. I settled at the breakfast nook as Zoe parked herself at my elbow. The kids' drawings, rocket ships and princess castles, lined a corkboard above the table. My throat tightened. Sarah set down a mug. I realize this is unusual, she said. I didn't know about your involvement until Alex told me he'd been confronted. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Emily. I exhaled, wary but curious. I need to understand how this happened, I said. Why Alex was the one posting for you when he could have been living here with me. Sarah folded her hands. After my daughter Sophie was born, I went back to teaching full-time. Ryan sprung for a social media manager so our elder son, Noah, could keep up with photos and event invites. But the agency was expensive. Alex, he was a friend from childhood, volunteered to help out of the goodness of his heart. Her eyes flicked with remorse. He's always been dependable that way. He never asked for money. He thought it was easier than explaining our situation to you guys. Ryan leaned forward, voice gentle. We never intended to hide anything from you, Emily. We just assumed Alex had mentioned he was running our page. We've been overwhelmed. Divorce proceedings, school projects, my mom's illness. Social media felt like the least of our worries. I nodded, absorbing their plight. A single mom juggling 2 jobs, a husband working long hours, 2 young children who needed everything their peers had. But you knew he was engaged to me, I said. Wouldn't you have told me directly? Sarah looked stricken. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. When I saw Alex post my son's graduation photos, I assumed you'd seen them too, since you guys were planning a wedding and sharing everything. Her cheeks flushed. I never considered the pain this would cause you. Zoe cleared her throat. You both understand how it felt from her side, she asked. To be the one discovering this? Ryan nodded. Emily, we want to make this right. We'll take full control of the page, set it up so you know the password, the admins, everything. And if you decide to stay with Alex, we'll coordinate transparently. Sarah's voice wobbled. I also want to apologize for letting him shoulder all of this. I never meant to cause discord. I value your relationship, Emily, more than our page. She bit her lip and pressed her palms together. If there's anything I can do to regain your trust, please tell me. I studied her genuine apology, the traces of fatigue under her eyes, the way Ryan's hand hovered protectively over hers. This wasn't a conspiracy of lovers, it was a crutch for a family in crisis. My anger ebbed into something more complex, empathy tangled with hurt. Zoe nudged me. What do you need from them? She whispered. I turned back to Sarah. I need you to delete any admin settings on the page, right now, so Alex can hand over control to me. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I need you to show me the new login credentials. Sarah nodded and set aside her coffee. She opened her laptop, logged in as me, and walked Zoe and me through the process, removing Alex's access, adding their own credentials, and then handing me a fresh username and password. I stared at the screen as the admin panel updated. My name at the top, theirs as co-admins. It's done, Sarah said, voice trembling. You have full control. I closed the laptop and looked around the table. The children's artwork, the loaf of bread cooling on the counter, the weary yet hopeful faces of Sarah and Ryan. It felt surreal to reclaim this digital space. Ryan cleared his throat. We'd like you to join us for lunch. Nothing elaborate, just sandwiches. And maybe let the kids show you their schoolwork? I hesitated, the knot in my chest loosening just a bit. I'd like that, I said softly. Sarah beamed. She led me to a play area where Sophie and Noah scrambled to show me their drawings of our dog Baxter and our wedding venue. Side by side, I knelt to hug them, feeling the warmth of a real family embrace. Back at the table, Zoe raised her coffee in salute. Here's to new beginnings, she said. I lifted my mug to clink hers. To transparency, I added. Sarah and Ryan joined in. We drank the coffee, its bitterness tempered by genuine smiles. Later, as Zoe and I drove home in silence, I thought about the afternoon's revelations, the pain of secrecy and the relief of shared truth. I realized that while Alex had broken my trust, Sarah and Ryan had shown courage by opening their doors and their hearts to reconciliation. At my front door, I turned to Zoe. What do you think? I asked. Am I ready to keep fighting for him? She studied me for a long moment. You saw their side, she said. Now think about his side, and yours. Tomorrow, when he checks in with your password, you'll know whether you can let him back in. I nodded, unlocking my door. Tomorrow, I whispered. Inside, I turned off the lights and crawled into bed, heart heavy but hopeful. The next chapter would demand more honesty than either of us had ever mustered, and I felt, strangely, that I was ready to walk into it. A month later, I found myself rubbing sleep from my eyes before sunrise, the weight of the past weeks still humming beneath my ribs. Alex slept beside me, his breathing steady and unguarded for the first time since I discovered his hidden life. I glanced at my phone, an automated calendar reminder. Weekly transparency check-in with Alex. I tapped it, scrolling through the past 4 weeks of logs he'd shared without prompting, work meetings, weekends with family, cancelled invites, exact timestamps. Every entry lined up, no more excuses, no more second lives. I slipped out of bed and padded into the kitchen, flicking on the light. Zoe was already there, nursing a mug of tea. Her expression was gentle but expectant, as though she'd been waiting for this moment. Morning, I said softly, wrapping my hands around a chipped mug. Warmth pooled in my chest, an unexpected comfort in the aftermath of chaos. I've been reviewing the logs, I said, settling on a stool. I tapped the screen to show her. Child custody exchanges on Saturday mornings, grocery runs labeled, family errands, and those Sunday brunches tagged. Us time. Everything matches. My voice caught. No hidden gaps. Zoe nodded, eyes bright. How do you feel? She asked. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Still vulnerable, I admitted. I see the cracks we had. But I also see he's been rebuilding, brick by brick, like he promised. I took a sip of tea. And I've had to decide, is this enough to move forward, or is it time to close the door? Zoe reached out and squeezed my hand. Only you know. I stood and walked to the window, watching the sunrise paint the rooftops amber. Memories of that first discovery. Baxter at my feet, coffee spilled on the rug, surged forward. I thought of how my heart shattered, how anger and betrayal seized me. Then I remembered Alex's confession, the accident that broke his first marriage, his guilt over his son, his flawed attempt to shield me from old pain. I realized that love can't be measured in perfect intentions, only in honest actions. I turned back to Zoe. I want to believe in us, I said, voice tender. But I need one final step. I pulled out my phone and drafted a joint message in our shared family group chat. Emily *, hi everyone. Just a quick note. I've taken back admin of Sarah and Ryan's wedding page and handed over full access to them. I'd appreciate it if we could all close the chapter on that story. Alex and I are planning our own life together, and we're grateful for your support. Thank you for understanding. I tapped send and watched the little check marks appear. I closed the app, then looked at Zoe. If they respond with anything but kindness or closure, it'll tell me everything I need to know. She smiled. You're ready. A few minutes later, my phone chimed with replies, one from Sarah, one from Ryan, and a group message. They were short, sweet, supportive. Congratulations, so happy for you both. And, wishing you the best. And Sarah added, thank you for trusting us enough to include you. Your family. Reading their words, I felt the knot of resentment loosen. They'd offered an olive branch, and I'd accepted. That afternoon, Alex and I sat at our kitchen table, Baxter snoozing by our feet. He reached for my hand, his eyes full of possibility. I saw their messages, he said, voice soft. Thank you for making that step. I smiled, squeezing his hand. I wanted to see how they felt about us. I paused, gathering courage. I've decided we deserve another chance. But from here on, total transparency, no more secrets, no more surprises. He exhaled in relief. I promise. Every plan, every invite, every detail, I share it all. He slid a slim envelope across the table. I wrote you something. My heart fluttered. I opened it to find 2 tickets, one to the venue where we dreamed of exchanging vows. The date was 6 months away. A note inside read, let's write the next chapter together, stronger, honest, and unafraid. Tears sprang to my eyes as I looked at him. You remember? I whispered. He nodded, eyes shining. I remember everything, with you. We spent the rest of the afternoon sketching out rough plans, table names that honored our blended circle, guest list including Sarah, Ryan, and the kids. We joked about the kids' table by the fireplace and Aunt Martha's allergies. It felt delightfully mundane and entirely real, not a polished illusion but a living promise. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I found Zoe on my doorstep again. I think we're doing it, I said, excitement in my voice. She beamed. I never doubted it for a second. I hugged her tightly, gratitude swelling. Thank you for being my mirror and my anchor. Zoe laughed, stepping back. Anytime. Now go, your real life awaits. Inside, Alex and I played our old Spotify favorites, songs from our first road trip, the jazz tune that started it all, and then added a new playlist titled * Our Wedding. * I watched him scroll through the tracks, nodding at my first choice. Open Book, a song about second chances. Baxter barked, ready for his evening walk. As we clipped on his leash and stepped outside, I slipped my hand into Alex's. The cool air brushed my cheeks, and the horizon glowed with city lights and stars. I love you, Alex said. I love you more, I replied, squeezing his hand. Under that sky, with past mistakes acknowledged and future vows awaiting, I realized that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be the catalyst for a more honest, resilient love. And as Baxter led us down the quiet street, I knew our next chapter would be written not in hidden drafts, but in shared footsteps and open hearts. One day, one truth, one golden seam at a time.